Welcome back to Petverse, where curiosity leads us into the mysterious and often amusing behaviors of our animal companions. I'm Petverse Voyager, and today we're exploring one of the most iconic, and sometimes frustrating, feline habits. Why do cats love knocking things off tables? If you've ever watched your cat calmly approach the edge of a desk, slowly extend a paw, and deliberately push your pen, keys, or glass toward gravity, you might wonder if this is pure mischief. The object teeters, falls, and your cat watches with quiet fascination. To us it can look intentional, almost comedic, as if the cat is testing the laws of physics for entertainment. But behind that small dramatic push lies a complex blend of instinct, curiosity, and communication. Let's start with the most powerful driving force in a cat's mind: curiosity. Cats are natural investigators of their environment. In the wild, understanding how objects move can mean the difference between catching prey and missing a meal. When a cat taps an object with its paw, it is performing a miniature experiment. Will it roll? Will it wobble? Will it make a sound? The movement of a falling object activates the same neural pathways that respond to prey behavior. To a cat, a pen sliding across a desk may mimic the quick movement of a mouse or insect. The moment the object falls, the cat's brain receives sensory feedback, visual motion, sound from impact, even vibrations through the surface. It's an instant lesson in cause and effect. But curiosity alone doesn't explain the deliberate style many cats display when they knock something down. Anyone who has lived with a cat knows that the movement often appears slow and calculated. That's because cats rely heavily on their paws to explore the world. Unlike humans, who primarily use vision and hands for manipulation, cats use sensitive paw pads to test texture, stability, and weight. The paw becomes both a sensor and a tool. When a cat nudges an object toward the edge of a surface, it is gathering tactile information. Is the object stable? Is it light or heavy? What happens if pressure increases? This form of tactile exploration is especially important for an animal that evolved as both predator and prey. Another fascinating factor is the hunting instinct. In nature, prey animals rarely remain perfectly still. They twitch, dart, and flee. A cat's hunting strategy depends on triggering movement that reveals a target. By tapping an object repeatedly, the cat may be simulating the motion that would cause hidden prey to reveal itself. Once the object falls, the sound or movement confirms the result of the hunt. Even though a house cat doesn't need to hunt for survival, the instinctive pattern of stalk, test, and pounce remains deeply embedded in its brain. Knocking objects down can also be a form of play. Play behavior in animals often mirrors survival skills. When a cat bats a toy across the floor, it is practicing the same coordination required to capture prey. A falling object adds unpredictability. And unpredictability is incredibly stimulating to a cat's brain. A stationary object quickly becomes boring, but an object that moves, rolls, or drops suddenly becomes exciting. Gravity turns everyday items into interactive toys. There is also a social dimension we shouldn't ignore. Cats are intelligent observers of human behavior. If your cat knocks a glass off the table and you immediately react, perhaps by shouting, rushing over, or even laughing, you've just provided attention. To a cat, attention is powerful reinforcement. Over time, your reaction may teach the cat that knocking objects down produces an interesting response from you. In other words, the behavior becomes a reliable way to get noticed. Some cats even learn that pushing objects toward the edge while making eye contact with their owner guarantees immediate engagement. What appears like a rebellious act may actually be a clever communication strategy. Another reason cats interact with objects on tables is simply because those surfaces are part of their territory. Cats prefer elevated vantage points where they can observe their surroundings. Tables, shelves, and desks provide perfect observation platforms. Once a cat is there, the objects on those surfaces become part of the environment to explore. The items may smell like their owner, contain unfamiliar textures, or reflect light. From the cat's perspective, the table is not a sacred workspace, it is an interactive landscape filled with potential discoveries. Interestingly, boredom can amplify this behavior. Cats that lack mental stimulation may invent their own forms of entertainment. If there are no toys, puzzles, or engaging activities available, everyday objects become substitutes. Pens, coins, cups, and remote controls suddenly become fascinating tools for exploration and play. Providing appropriate outlets for curiosity, such as interactive toys, climbing structures, or puzzle feeders, can often reduce the frequency of these tabletop experiments. Ultimately, when a cat knocks something off a table, it is rarely acting out of spite or malice. Cats do not operate from a desire to annoy humans. Instead, their actions reflect instinct, curiosity, sensory exploration, and sometimes a clever attempt to gain attention. The falling object is simply the result of a natural investigative process. Here on Petverse, we see these small moments not as inconveniences but as glimpses into the fascinating mind of a predator adapted for precision, curiosity, and play. I'm Petverse Voyager. And as you watch your cat slowly extend that paw toward the edge of your desk, consider the thousands of years of evolution guiding that motion. What looks like chaos to us is, in the feline world, a perfectly logical experiment. And sometimes, the simplest explanation is the most charming. Gravity is interesting, movement is exciting, and your curious cat is just exploring the universe, one falling object at a time. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the remarkable behaviors of the animals who share our homes.